All right, let's jump right in. We've got this fascinating report here.
All right.
It's titled Macro Insights Weekly from DBS Group Research. It's dated November 4th, 2024.
Right.
And it's chock full of insights into what's happening in global finance right now.
Yeah, buckle up.
Yeah, buckle up. We're going to be talking about the U.S. elections, exploring trends in India,
Interesting.
and even tackling what's going on with the U.S. dollar.
Oh, a lot to cover.
A lot to unpack, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's start with the big one that's just days away.
Oh, the election?
Yeah, the U.S. presidential election, it's on November 5th.
Right.
It's Vice President Kamala Harris versus former President Donald Trump, round 2.
Round 2.
And this report makes this really interesting point.
Okay.
This election is happening, unlike the 2020 election,
Yeah.
during a relatively calm economic period.
That's true. Yeah.
The 2020 election, complete chaos, pandemic.
Middle of everything. Yeah.
Right, in the thick of it.
Exactly.
Now, things seem a little bit calmer, on the surface at least.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Right.
sometimes it feels like a calm surface
Mm-hmm.
can hide some pretty choppy waters underneath.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The report actually suggests
Okay.
that the U.S. is facing some major economic challenges,
Regardless.
regardless of who wins this thing.
So it's not about the election.
Not really.
It's about these underlying
Exactly. Structural problems.
structural problems.
These aren't problems that are going to just disappear with a new president.
I see. The report uses this phrase that really jumped out at me.
Okay.
Increasingly untenable
Oh, yeah.
when describing the U.S. fiscal situation.
Yeah, that's not good.
That sounds a little bit ominous. What does that actually mean
Yeah.
for someone who's not an economist?
Yeah, so imagine trying to balance your own checkbook,
Okay.
but your credit card debt is bigger than your entire annual income.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That's not a good situation to be in.
That's kind of what the U.S. is dealing with right now. Their net public debt is over 100% of their GDP.
Wow.
And get this, they're spending over $1 trillion every year just on interest payments.
$1 trillion.
$1 trillion. To put that in perspective,
Okay.
that's like the entire GDP of some countries.
Wow. That's a lot of money. So, given that situation,
Yeah.
how are investors reacting? I mean, are people still...
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Foreign investors are still buying U.S. Treasury bonds,
Okay.
which means they're lending the U.S. money.
So there's still some trust there?
There is.
Yeah,
But there's a big but.
Okay, I'm listening.
That trust isn't a given.
I see.
The report highlights a few factors
Yeah.
that could make investors pretty nervous.
Like what?
Well, inflation, especially in services, has been really stubborn.
It has been high.
It just won't go down.
Yeah, we've all seen it.
Exactly.
And then there's this whole other thing that people keep talking about,
Oh, yeah.
this fiscal cliff.
That's a scary one.
Can you explain that in simple terms?
Sure.
Because I'm still not quite sure I understand what it is.
Yeah, okay. So think of it like this.
Hmm.
It's this combo of spending cuts
Okay.
and tax increases
Right.
that are scheduled to kick in automatically.
Oh, automatically.
Yeah, if the government doesn't do something,
If they don't act.
right, it's designed to reduce the deficit.
Okay.
But it could also totally shock the economy
Ooh.
if it's not handled really carefully.
Yes. So it's like a double-edged sword.
Exactly. Exactly.
It could help,
It could help or it could really hurt.
or it could really hurt.
The problem is, it doesn't seem like anyone wants to address it.
So it's just looming.
This is looming out there.
Okay, so we've got inflation.
Yeah.
We've got this fiscal cliff potentially on the horizon.
Right.
Are there any other red flags that investors are worried about?
Oh, yeah. The report points out
Yeah.
that the U.S. dollar being used as a political tool
Interesting.
is another big concern.
So what does that look like in practice?
Sanctions, trade wars, that kind of thing.
Right.
Those actions can really undermine the dollar's reputation
Yeah.
as a stable, reliable global currency.
So if investors start losing faith in the dollar,
That's when things could get really messy.
yeah, what would happen then?
Oh, it could have huge ripple effects throughout the entire global economy.
I see. So that's a big one to watch.
Definitely.
And that actually brings us to the other major topic highlighted in this report,
Okay.
the shift in U.S. trade policy over the past 8 years.
Yeah, it's been quite a shift.
It has been. It has been. What's the takeaway there?
We've seen this pretty dramatic move away from free trade
Uh-huh.
and towards protectionism.
Okay.
Think tariffs on goods from China,
Right.
for example.
Yeah, those have been in the news a lot.
A lot.
Wow.
And here's the kicker.
What's that?
Regardless of who wins the election next week,
Okay.
that trend is probably not going to reverse.
Really? So no matter who's in charge,
Doesn't seem like it.
this protectionism is here to stay.
It's looking that way.
So what does that mean for the average person?
Right. So does it mean we'll all be paying more for everything?
That's the question.
It's complicated, but in a lot of cases, yes.
Right.
Tariffs lead to higher prices.
Makes sense.
Right. But it's not just about prices.
What else then?
Well, take restricted access to high tech,
Okay.
like what we're seeing with China.
Yeah.
That creates a domino effect.
How so?
It impacts other countries doing business with China.
Right. It ripples out.
It ripples out, and it can stifle innovation, too.
Wow. So the implications are bigger than just higher prices.
Much bigger.
Yeah. This is all pretty heavy stuff.
It is. It is.
I think we need to move to something a little lighter.
Right, let's switch gears.
Yeah. How about we talk about something that affects everyone around the world? The U.S. dollar.
Sounds good to me.
Let's dive into that next. Okay, so we've talked about the U.S. fiscal situation and how these protectionist policies are impacting global trade.
Right. Lots to think about there.
All pretty heavy stuff.
It is.
But now let's shift gears a bit
Okay, that's good.
and talk about something that affects everyone around the world.
I'm listening.
The
U.S. dollar.
Ah, yes. The big question.
The big question.
Is the dollar still king?
Is it?
Or are we witnessing the beginning of its decline?
Exactly. What does the report say about that?
Well, it offers a pretty nuanced perspective. It says that while the dollar's long-term dominance might be waning,
Okay.
it's still the most important currency in the global economy.
Really?
I mean, think about it.
Okay.
Most commodities are priced in dollars,
Right.
and central banks around the world
Yeah.
hold large reserves of U.S. dollars.
So it sounds like reports of the dollar's death have been greatly exaggerated.
Yeah, a bit overblown, maybe.
Okay. But still, what would it take for the dollar to actually lose its top spot?
That's a good question.
Could that really happen?
It's definitely possible.
Wow.
I mean, history is full of examples
Yeah.
of once dominant currencies being replaced.
It's a complex process, of course,
Yeah.
but a sustained loss of confidence
Okay.
in the U.S. economy and its policies
Right.
could definitely accelerate that shift away from the dollar.
I see. So, what kinds of things are we talking about specifically?
Well, think back to what we discussed earlier.
Yeah, okay.
Runaway inflation,
Yeah.
that massive national debt,
Right.
and the use of the dollar as a political weapon.
Right.
These are all things that could erode the dollar's appeal over time.
And the report does mention that former President Trump's policies were generally considered more inflationary than Vice President Harris's. So does that mean if he's elected, we'll see the dollar weaken?
It's not quite that simple.
Okay.
The truth is that neither candidate has really put forward a concrete plan
To combat inflation.
to actually combat inflation.
So no matter who wins,
It seems likely that we're going to see higher interest rates,
higher interest rates.
regardless of who wins.
And how would that affect the dollar?
Well, that's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
In the short term, higher interest rates could actually strengthen the dollar
Oh, how so?
because they attract foreign investment.
Okay.
People are looking for higher returns.
So it's like a temporary boost.
Exactly.
Interesting. So it sounds like the future of the dollar
Yeah.
is kind of a mixed bag right now.
Yeah. It's a bit up in the air.
A lot depends on how the next president handles these economic challenges,
For sure.
but also how the rest of the world reacts.
Absolutely. And speaking of shifting global dynamics,
Okay.
let's turn our attention to a country that's been making some serious waves
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
in the world of global investment.
India.
India. Exactly.
I was really intrigued by that chart of the week in this report.
Yeah.
The one that focuses on India's foreign direct investment,
The FDI.
or FDI. Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable.
What stood out to you about it?
Well, it shows that FDI inflows to India have exceeded 2% of GDP for almost a decade.
Wow. That's a long time.
It is. That's a really impressive track record.
Yeah, it is. Especially when you compare it to other emerging markets.
Exactly. They're doing something right over there.
It is impressive.
It is.
But there was a noticeable dip in 2023.
Yeah, there was.
And so far, that trend hasn't really reversed.
Uh-huh.
It makes you wonder what's going on there.
Yeah. Is India losing its luster?
Is it losing its appeal?
Well, it's important to remember
Okay.
that even with this dip, India is still attracting a significant amount of foreign investment.
So it's not like a mass exodus.
Not at all. And the report suggests
Okay.
that investments in services and technology are actually expected to rebound pretty soon.
Oh, so it's like a temporary blip?
Could be. Could be.
That's good news.
It is.
What's driving that expected rebound? Why are investors still so bullish on India?
Well, it's a combination of factors.
Okay.
India has a large and growing market.
Right. Huge population.
Yeah, exactly. And a young and skilled workforce. And the government has been working really hard to make it easier to do business there.
Okay, so they're making progress.
They are. And we're also seeing several multinational corporations, especially in the tech sector, announcing plans to increase their investments in India.
It's interesting how this all ties back to what we were discussing earlier about protectionism with the U.S. and China locked in this trade war.
Right.
It seems like a lot of companies are looking to diversify.
Yeah, for sure.
Their supply chains.
Absolutely.
And find new markets.
New markets are key.
And India seems perfectly positioned to benefit from that.
Perfectly positioned, yeah. That's a really insightful observation.
Thanks. And there's another trend highlighted in the chart that I found super interesting.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
The steady rise in outflows from India.
Right. The outflows.
Yeah, it seems a little counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it?
If India is doing so well, why are investors pulling their money out?
Well, it's actually a very positive sign.
Really?
Yeah, it indicates successful exits for venture capital and private equity firms that had previously invested in India.
Okay.
Essentially, they're cashing out their investments and making a profit.
Oh, I see. So it's not a sign of weakness?
No, not at all.
But rather a sign of a healthy and maturing market.
Exactly. And those successful exits, they're crucial because they create the foundation for future investment rounds.
I see. So it's like a cycle.
It is. It is.
When investors see that they can make a profit in India, they're more likely to reinvest those profits back into the country.
That's the idea, yeah.
It's a virtuous cycle.
Success bleeds more success.
Exactly. And the report seems to suggest that this dynamic, combined with India's, booming stock market, paints a very positive picture for the country's economic prospects.
It does. It does.
It's almost like India is offering a counter-narrative to all the doom and gloom surrounding the U.S. and China.
Yeah, they're kind of a bright spot right now.
Yeah, definitely a bright spot. It's amazing to see how all these global economic forces are so interconnected.
It really is, yeah.
We've got the U.S. grappling with its fiscal health and those protectionist policies.
Right.
The dollar's future kind of hanging in the balance.
Hanging in there.
And then there's India emerging as this rising economic powerhouse.
Yeah. A lot going on.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is. It is.
And what I find fascinating is how these trends are playing out on this global scale.
Right.
For example, we talked about how that restricted access to high tech for China is impacting other countries.
Yeah, it's having a ripple effect.
Well, India is actually taking advantage of that.
Oh, yeah.
They're seizing this opportunity to position themselves as an alternative hub for tech manufacturing and innovation.
Smart move.
So it's like every challenge creates new opportunities for someone else.
That's a good way to put it.
That's kind of exciting, actually.
It is, yeah.
It's a reminder that the global economy is constantly evolving.
Never a dull moment.
There will always be winners and losers.
That's true.
But the key is to understand these underlying trends.
Yeah. Got to stay informed.
And adapt accordingly.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. So to wrap up, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Oh, yeah.
From the U.S. election to global trade tensions to the rise of India.
Right.
We've explored some key insights to help you navigate this complex financial landscape.
Trying to make sense of it all.
But I'm curious, what stands out to you as the most significant trend to watch?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Is it the U.S. potentially heading towards this fiscal cliff?
It's a big one, for sure.
The ongoing shift towards protectionism.
Yeah, that's a big one, too.
Or maybe the rise of new economic powerhouses like India.
All important trends.
They are.
If I had to pick just one, though.
Okay, I'm listening.
I'd say keep a close eye on how the U.S. dollar performs in the coming years.
The dollar, okay.
If it starts to lose its dominance, that could have major implications for the entire global financial system.
Wow.
It would be a seismic shift.
It would.
And it's something we haven't really seen in our lifetimes.
It's almost like a domino effect, right?
Yeah, I like that.
One piece falls, and it could trigger a cascade.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, I think we'll leave it there for today.
All right, sounds good.
As always, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
Into the world of global finance.
Fascinating stuff.
We hope you found it insightful.
I hope so, too.